Me and Alex, say my name, Alex. Bring the flame, my neighbors. Love and change, we'll be talking. Make it play, and Alex, keep it real.
Snoop is back in the headlines, but this time is not about music. It's about the tragic death of Drakeo the Ruler. Back in December 2021, Drakeo was fatally stabbed backstage at the Once Upon a Time in LA festival. After his death, his family filed a wrongful death lawsuit claiming the event had serious security failures. Now, Snoop Dogg's company is asking the court to dismiss the case against them. According to the reports, Snoop's side is basically saying, "We didn't run the festival. We didn't control the venue. We didn't hire security. We were only there for Snoop to perform." And that's where the legal battle gets interesting, because Drakeo's family is arguing that the people and companies connected to the festival should be held accountable for what happened backstage. But Snoop's company is saying they had no operational control, so they shouldn't be legally responsible. This doesn't mean the whole Drakeo case is over. It means Snoop's company is trying to separate itself from the lawsuit. So the big question is, was Snoop's company just connected because he was on the lineup? Or did the company have enough involvement in the event to stay in the lawsuit? Either way, this case is bigger than one artist. It brings up a serious question in hip-hop. When violence happens backstage at major festivals, who is responsible? The venue, the promoters, security, or everyone attached to the event? Drakeo's death was a huge loss for LA rap, and years later, his family is still fighting for accountability. So this situation with Drakeo the Ruler, although it's tragic and the family does need answers and closure, I do feel like this is a situation where you're shooting up the club just to hit your intended target. And you're trying to kill, in the process you're killing everybody, because you don't do stuff like that. You don't try to bunch up a bunch of people who are not even involved in the setup or the promoting of this concert. You go to the promoters, you go to the security firms, you go to the people who created this. To bunch up a bunch of people, including Snoop and whoever other artists that were on the bill, just to try to get money is kind of a money grab, if you ask me. And I don't even necessarily think it's the family that is doing this. Sometimes these lawyers get in your ear and they start telling you, hey, we need to do this, because the lawyers are trying to get a big payout. So they're going to try to, create this spectacle, of public opinion, you know what I mean? But when you really look at the story in detail, you're like, why would Snoop have to pay for somebody who, passed away from an event that he was also a work for hire situation? He's just as much of a victim of anything, because that could have happened to Snoop. So the lack of security that is going on inside that establishment affected Snoop, affected the lineup. And so, yeah, Snoop is a victim as well, So I think Snoop's company is doing the right thing, get this dismissed, because it's like you have this hanging over your business, and you know how corporations look at stuff like this, They already kind of iffy about hip hop and, our ties to street life, So here's Snoop. Over the years, he's made himself a household name, especially after beating that murder case back in the 90s. And here you are trying to put him in something as tragic as this. It makes it, optics-wise, it makes it look like, oh, Snoop had something to do with his death. And it's far from that. Even the headlines in some of the publications is making it seem like, just the way the headlines are spin, if you didn't know no better, you're like, oh, Snoop was involved in this kid's death, and it's not really the case. So, I hope he does get this dismissed, and, they get accountability from the proper people. you know, mainly the promoters, mainly the security people, and just whoever else is involved in the setup of the, you know, event. That's, you know, this is where, you know, we gotta do better. You know what I mean? And it's unfortunate that that happened to Draco, but you know, also it's something to be said when you running in that gang life, because Draco was definitely, you know, a shit talker, definitely vocal on the street side of things, you know, and he had a lot of ops, and you know, that's not what you want. You know what I mean? Especially if you want to move around freely and safe out here. Can't stir up the pot. So this is food for thought. Y'all do the dishes. Please like, share, and subscribe. I am Ian Alex. And yeah, you can find me on YouTube under that name. I am Ian Alex. And stay tuned for more.